Good afternoon, Commissioners. Can you hear me? All right. Rob Young here, Director of Human Resources. 2020 certainly forced everyone to call some audibles. In our office, we changed the way we delivered HR and benefits services to our agencies and stakeholders overnight. Our staff has been working remotely since March, and they have not missed a beat. Their production and dedication throughout this year has been outstanding. The following is an overview of our efforts related to COVID-19. In the benefits, we provided 100% coverage for COVID testing and treatment and virtual and telehealth visits. We reduced hurdles for pharmacy and life events. We transitioned to a virtual open enrollment this year. We highlighted services to assist with mental health issues throughout the year. And Fund Health resulted in cost savings to agencies and employees. We had a 1.5 month premium holiday in August and a 0% increase slated for 2021. The staff also assisted in obtaining hand sanitizers, thermometers, and wipes for all agencies. In the area of personnel, we transitioned to virtual hearings and all aspects of the onboarding process. We trained staff and managed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This provided 80 hours emergency sick leave and 10 weeks of expanded FMLA for child care purposes. We also assisted in managing the 80 hours of wellness leave that you provided county employees back in March. Assisted county administration with agency remote staffing plans and agency positive test notification process. During this time, we were able to negotiate a new OCSA agreement 100% virtually. And our staff assisted in developing signs for facility use regarding masks, temperatures, and other safety standards. Risk training and VIP. Our training, obviously, we went 100% virtual on the training platform. We greatly increased what we offered this year. Risk, they've been conducting ergonomic assessments for remote workers, which has been very beneficial to them. They've been able to conduct 47 building inspections, including COVID compliance in buildings. And VIP program, which is our volunteer program, they assisted with mask and shield assembly. Throughout this period, we also implemented Kronos, which is our payroll and personnel processing. And we also used it to send out agency-wide message related to COVID and other matters throughout the period. Our staff assisted in conducting 59 grant reviews for the CARES Act Fund and Resilience Initiative. And finally, lastly, we created the new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator position. You will hear from Carolina Trindaggi shortly. We look forward to whatever may lie ahead in 2021. After 2020, I know our staff can handle anything. At this time, I'll turn it over to Assistant Director Jody Lease.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and County Administration. The goal of wellness, benefits and wellness is to support the health and well-being of Franklin County Cooperative employees, as well as their families, and so that they may publicly serve our community. And as Director Young reported, changes were made in the health plan in response to COVID to improve access to health care, to reduce out-of-pocket expenses for our members. And additionally, we eliminated any Thrive On program requirement that could not be carried out safely, that would have caused additional stress or anxiety on behalf of our members, or if it piled onto the already overburdened healthcare system, we eliminated those requirements in our programming. Most existing Thrive On programs were transitioned successfully to a virtual format. New resources were made available to address the anxiety that was brought on by COVID, the social unrest being experienced across the nation, and even the uncertainty surrounding the 2020 election. Power of positivity, unconscious bias, managing weight during COVID were just a few of the healthy lifestyle programs that were introduced in 2020. Now, it may seem counterintuitive when we're in a pandemic caused by a highly contagious virus, but the emotional well-being of our employees and their families became our priority. Our results show how resilient our members actually are. Nearly 1/3 of our adult population participated in a healthy lifestyle program in 2020 so far. Registration for the Franklin County 5K, which was virtual this year, more than doubled the registrations that we saw last year. We delivered over 150 flu shots through our new drive-through flu shot clinic. And the completion rates for our 4 for 3 program are approaching and will likely exceed those that we saw in 2019. So we had a pretty banner 2020 year considering. As we look forward to 2021, the goal is kind of to recenter and refocus our attention, particularly in these areas. Program design. We know that no two people address wellness in the same way. So we are deconstructing some of our programs so that each member can kind of develop or create their own wellness approach. Prevention is also an area we need to focus on. We knew a drop in preventive exams would occur due to the impact of COVID on the delivery of healthcare. But we also know that today's decisions create tomorrow's realities. And if we don't get back on the prevention train, then we will see that in the coming years. New programs. So in 2021, we are introducing a virtual exercise program, as well as a full-time dedicated EAP clinician who will be available to all agencies and all employees. We will also work to integrate more diversity, equity, and inclusion topics into our programming. So thank you, commissioners, for allowing my staff and I the opportunity to support the people that undertake your mission of every resident every day. Thank you. Carolina?
Carolina, you're
You're
muted.
muted.
I will learn to unmute one day. Good afternoon, commissioners. It is a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Carolina Trindaggi, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator. And as we begin to pivot to our key new diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative for 2021, it is important to note that you, along with county administration, continue to be the driving force behind this work. In 2018, you sought to identify the root causes of poverty in Franklin County. Because of that work, we explicitly state that structural and systemic racism are an underlying cause of poverty. Because of that work, we now have the Rise Together blueprint for reducing poverty in Franklin County, which determine goals, recommendations, and action steps that would serve as the foundation to the work of disrupting poverty in Franklin County. One such recommendation from the blueprint is that we move from a collection of isolated and disconnected diversity initiatives to an inclusive, coordinated, purposeful, interdependent, and strategic effort. As a response to this recommendation, you have partnered with Courtney Kerrigan, CEO of Raising the Bar Performance Group, for training and strategic planning. To date, hundreds of BOC employees have participated in racial equity, implicit bias, and cultural competency training. As a response, you have created the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator position within the Human Resources Department. The purpose of this position is to ensure that Franklin County provides an advanced, diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture, integrating the principles of DEI in our team members, processes, and services to provide every resident excellent and efficient service every day. As a response, just this morning, you passed the resolution which identified racial equity as a core principle of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. These actions are not just symbolic. They create the foundation for the work that is ahead of us. Our focus is racial equity. And with racial equity as a core principle, we are taking purposeful steps to operationalizing our racial equity work. As we look ahead to 2021, the HR department has partnered with Ms. Kerrigan and Bart Logan, JFS Deputy Director of Communications, to establish and launch the first Board of Commissioners Racial Equity Council. The primary role of the Racial Equity Council is to proactively apply a racial equity and inclusion lens to how Franklin County approaches recruiting, learning and development, programming, and service delivery. We will engage every Board of Commissioners agency on all levels in order to move from a disconnected and isolated effort to a purposeful and strategic initiative. The 5 items that you see on your screen are the Racial Equity Council outcomes. The Racial Equity Council is where we truly operationalize our racial equity lens so that we can activate real change in our culture, policies, and systems. The Human Resources Department acknowledges its key role towards systemic change. We recognize that we must go beyond checking boxes so that we can ask the right questions and truly understand where barriers exist and why. We are committed to the goal and are excited to lead this effort in collaboration with all Board of Commissioners agencies, which we already have the pleasure of serving every single day. In closing, we want to thank you for your leadership and support for this work. You have created and continue to create the infrastructure we need to meet the goal, which our County Administrator, Ken Wilson, states perfectly, is ingraining racial equity into our DNA. And with that, I want to open up for comments and questions for the Human Resources panel. Thank you.
Go. May I start? You guys okay? If I start? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay. All right, thank you. You point out that rightfully identifying a lot of the racial equity concept. I really appreciate that you zeroed in on that. In terms of hiring and recruitment and posting in minority newspapers and doing sort of that kind of outreach, what kind of budget have we set aside to do that work? Is it an increase from last year or the same, or what are we looking at in terms of really doing our own effort to recruit more aggressively in terms of diversification?
I don't know if I don't have the figures. I don't know if there's been an increase, Commissioner, but we have been budgeted for advertising and we went up probably last year. I think we do about 3 different publications currently every month. So
what's the budget for that, Rob?
I do not know. Zach, if you could help me out on the budget.
Yeah, Commissioner, the budget for advertising currently is $32,100. That is actually an increase from the projection for 2020 of $29,000 and an increase, as Rob said, from 2019 of $11,000 and change.
And do we feel like that's sufficient? And are we making progress in terms of our own minority and diversification efforts? Or do you need more? Is there more room for a more aggressive approach to that?
There's always room for more diversity. So we haven't really been hugely successful in getting applicants from some of those advertising. but it's worth the shot, and we'll continue to do that.
So are you
But-
saying we don't know if it's working or not? We put the ads in and then we don't get the feedback to know if it's working or not? Is that what you're saying?
We don't track that any longer,
Okay.
where the people come from. But any advertising is good advertising when you're reaching out to a market such as that, and they see Franklin County, they see your images, they see that we're hiring. So I think it's a worthwhile venture, and we've continued to do that, and we will continue to do it.
That's great. The only thing I'd ask too is maybe be inclusive of social media strategies as well, and include the commissioners to allow us to post on our respective pages if we want to be able to post those kind of advertising, because I know I can speak for my colleagues and say that people ask us for jobs all the time and what's listed, and so I like to be able to post things when I have. So maybe as we go forward, and let me just say too, I think our HR team is outstanding. Ms. Lees is always so responsive and so helpful, and I think our Thrive program is just the best. And I think it's just well designed, well administrated, and you guys just do great. And Caroline, I haven't had a lot of interaction with you, but my office has said very, very, very good things about you in our own staff meetings. So thank you very much for what you all do. You guys are amazing. But on the social media piece, we need a stronger presence in the social media. This is not directed at you, but in terms of recruitment, I think that's an area where we can maybe invest a little more resources. And so maybe think about that budgetary wise.
We're happy to take advantage of your social media following, Commissioner.
I don't know if I have a following, but yeah, I would like to post some stuff. So that's great. That's great.
Commissioner, are you done with your questions?
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Because I have a couple of questions for Rob on what we're doing about programs and policies to support our employees to navigate the next few months as we're still in the midst of COVID. And it's still pretty chaotic, and people working from home and needing to care for people in their families with COVID, or they have COVID and don't have enough sick leave. What are we doing to help our families as they navigate through COVID?
Commissioner, we do recognize that there's going to be challenges early in 2021. We did allow people to extend out their 80 hours that was provided by the commissioners back in March. But a lot of those people have already used that 80 hours, frankly.
Right.
So,
Right.
And the federal program that ends in December, right around the corner, and things right now today aren't looking any better than they looked back in March.
They're worse.
I didn't want to say that, Commissioner, but yeah, I think that it's an issue where we haven't had anything concrete to address that yet. I think we're going to have to be very flexible, as we have been throughout the year.
Right.
And if it requires additional resources, it may require additional resources.
Do we have a budget allowance to be able to do that?
Not in HR's budget, but
I know county administration is on this Zoom. I'm hoping we'll be able to do something, because therein lies the challenge, because we don't want to lose our employees who've been so loyal and good all this time. And I want to make sure that we can take care of our families during this very tough time.
Understand, Commissioner.
The other question that I have is, I know we did a little bit to do something for paid family leave. Are we going to expand that program at all in 21
We,
to be more consistent with the rest of the community and do something for a longer period of time?
Commissioner, are you talking the paid caregiver leave that we did?
Paid caregiver leave, paid family leave, however you want, yeah.
We can have discussions with that. We understand that that's a popular benefit. Currently it's 2 weeks. So that's something we can explore early into 2021.
I mean, I would think we'd want to be in the ballpark with other employers in town, and 2 weeks is not very much. And if you're taking care of a family member, or if you've had a baby, or if you've adopted a baby, that 2 weeks is not going to last very long. That's really not adequate as we're looking at retaining young workers, younger families. That's really not very adequate.
Again, that's something we can certainly look at, Commissioner. We understand the
Okay.
need.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything else?
Anybody else? I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you very much.